Who is Hesiod? We know a little bit more about him than we did about Homer. For Homer, mostly just knew nothing. We were trying to extract from his own work ways that we could maybe get a grip on what his identity is all about. Hesiod actually tells us in his poetry who he is. There's some more details that come out. We can extract some information from the Theogony, but the more useful one is actually a poem that we're not reading for this class called The Works and Days, where Hesiod talks about himself and his brother. Hesiod, we know, lived in central Greece in the 8th century BCE. His father came from the city of Kyme on the coast of Asia Minor, over across the Aegean in modern-day Turkey. His father had been a merchant seaman, but it was difficult to make ends meet, so he went to Askra, a small village on the eastern side of Mount Helicon in Boeotia in central Greece, across the Mediterranean, or across the Aegean from Turkey. He made a living at farming, we think. There, Hesiod and his brother Perses were born. Hesiod becomes a poet from the Muses themselves. He says that they actually come down from Mount Helicon and instruct him. The Muses' association with this mountain grows out of Hesiod claiming to have been inspired at that point. On Mount Helicon, he was busy tending flocks of lambs. When they came over, he was blown away and changed. He is as feted as a poet in antiquity as Homer was. For some people, after reading the two of them, they think to themselves, well, that's hard to imagine. Well, I think some of it comes with Homer being a master of a poetic form, using the narrative as a way to really drive his story. He's master of something that most of us, I think, probably still relate to, which is a great narrative story. He sees it as master in a different way of what the epic is possible, what is possible within an epic. And I think it's up to us to get inside that story and figure out, why is this one that they thought was so prominent and important. We hear in his Works and Days, as I said, that we're not going to be reading for this course, a lot of useful kinds of information. He has a kind of practical-minded side that shows through in the Works and Days, and almost reads actually like an almanac. Tells you the best times of the year to do certain kinds of things, sailing, farming, fishing, trading, and it talks to you about wisdom that could help you negotiate through your day-to-day life, and from a position in society that was not of grand importance. Hesiod is not talking down from on high at you in the way that Homer sometimes seemed to. Hesiod instead can relate to human beings the way that we all need to take care of what is necessary in our lives for keeping track of food and our trade relationships and our fishing and our sailing. But then also he shows himself to have a pretty powerful eye when it comes to trying to figure out how the whole universe itself works, not just the practical questions of human life. And it's in the Theogony that we get that story. The Theogony, some myth classes we actually start with that because it's a creation myth, and it seems to be intuitive. Well, creation myths should be at the beginning of mythic traditions. I don't think that's probably necessarily intuitive with respect to the Greek and Roman material. I think it actually makes a little more sense to talk about something else first. So that's why we started off with the Odyssey. And Hesiod's story, I think, is part of the larger collection of these epic tales, but it does not have an obvious primacy because its subject matter is the creation of the world. Homer and Hesiod both take that role of priority among the rest. To get started on his story, Hesiod engages in something that's a little strange with respect to Homer. He doesn't jump right into the middle of the story. He doesn't follow Homer's convention of building the whole epic into the first word and into the first line and the first 10 lines. Instead, he starts off with a long, over 100-line hymn to the Muses. He praises them and talks about what wonderful creatures they are. When we move on to hymns, in fact, next week, that'll be our subject matter for next week, looking at the Homeric hymns, we're going to see that Hesiod's opening of his epic actually fits the form of what a hymn is supposed to be pretty directly. We have a personal relationship expressed with the Muses. He praises them, sings their praises. At the end of his just over 100-line introductory part where he's praising them, he says goodbye to them. We'll see that happens as a normal part of epic of Greek hymns. So he's positioned himself as a way to get inside a story, but he's going to get inside a story through the Muses and through giving ample and abundant praise to them. He sings about their role in the cosmos, talks about what their special skills and purview are, and then that farewell ends with him, his treatment of them on page 6. So spending a little bit of time getting to know what these muses are and what Hesiod has in mind with them is a very beneficial way for us to get going. Homer has a single muse, a nameless one, and it inspires him. He becomes a conduit for that muse. Hesiod has a more fleshed out picture of what the muses are and what they do. They give him a chance to have a fascinating meditation on what poetry is all about. There are this collective group of 3 of them that get inside of his head and give him insight. They let him see past, present, and future. He can see forward, he can see the now, and he can see backward. He has a synoptic overview of things that is reasonably compared to a prophetic insight. He's like an inspired prophet in the way that he has knowledge that expands much beyond what yours and mine does. Poets are there in order to see things that normal human beings can't, and then to record them and pass them on. Poets recover past events, and then they immortalize them for the future. He also mentions a relationship between the muses and kingship or leadership. The muses give you the power to be a good king. Now, why is it that the same things that inspire great poetic insight also inspire kingship? It could be that what Hesiod wants to do is talk about poets as being in the same league as people that call the shots in a political context. So it could be him kind of elevating the status of a poet. But I think the idea of a poet ruler, a poet king, has enough cultural traction over the long sweep of history to suggest that there's more than just a kind of strategic relationship between these two. In other words, more than just a poet kind of trying to grab the authority of a politician by comparing himself to that leader. Instead, I think there's a sense in Hesiod that this grand synoptic vision of the world is really important for lots of things. Yeah, surely it's important if you want to sing songs about all the knowledge that's around us, but there's a perspective, I think, that you get with a synoptic view of something that is irreplaceable. It is much more important than just simply knowing this factoid, that factoid, all the discrete little pieces of knowledge that you can imagine in the world. Having a large purview is something that is deeply valuable and actually goes into what makes an effective ruler, what makes an effective leader. From Hesiod and others, we know that that's important, having an effective ruler, and that synoptic knowledge is part of what makes that person effective. The way it affects the person is that it makes the person better with respect to making judgments of fairness. The world is complex, things get out of whack, they get out of kilter, and in order to try to solve this stuff, you have to appeal to people's basic notions of fairness. That's a tricky thing. There's intuitive senses of fairness, yes, but we trust some people's judgment about fairness more than others. Hesiod tells us it has a connection with that thing that makes poets able to sing about anything, a depth of knowledge. So the poets also are learning from muses that we here can sing truth, and they can also sing lies, either one. So from the muses themselves, we hearken back to our opening definition of myth in this class. Remember, we said it was impossible to rule any of these things out. Some claim that it's a lie. By definition, myth means something that is not true. Other people claim that by definition, myth is an ultimate and profound truth. Well, right here, near page 1 of Western poetry, Hesiod puts the same theory of mythology in the mouth of the muses themselves. They can lie and they can tell the truth. How do you know which one's the difference? The outline of the poem to come appears. We hear about the family of the gods that we're going to learn about. We hear about Zeus, and we hear about the family of men and powerful giants. Hesiod's laid the setting for us in his opening hymn to the muses and given us a window into what's coming next. I'd also say for those who are watching this course who are younger, or for those that have younger children watching the course, this part of it is where a lot of the bits come out that are maybe farther on the PG-13 or rated R kind of scale. So not recommended for unaccompanied younger viewers, what's coming up. When we look at what happens in the creation of the cosmos, we're going to see all kinds of nasty things. And I'll do my best to use language that is not offensive, but I'm afraid that a lot of what we're going to talk about is quite, well, can be offensive. It's quite detailed and graphic. So get prepared for violence and things that are a little bit nasty. It's about to come up with Hesiods Theogony.